Hello, good evening, good morning, good night, depending on what part of the world you're in when you're looking at this. Hi, San Vanderpool here once again, sharing with you lifestyle thoughts and tips, just things that you can use to design the great life that we all deserve. My husband and I this year celebrated our 43rd anniversary last June. And I'm reminded of this because just today, somebody asked me, as people always do, what is the secret to longevity or to happiness in marriage? And it got me thinking. It's, to me, it's not just about marriage. It's what is the secret to happiness, perhaps just in relationships. Any relationship, I mean, relationships with your friends, your family, it's pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. And I thought about 5 things that I think would help us in any relationship to have a happier time, enjoy a better experience with other people. The first one I would like to talk about is to forgive. As we go through life, we always end up hurting the ones we love. Sometimes, I think most times, I like to think most times unintentionally, we hurt the ones we love. And when that happens, we would like to know that they forgive us and we can move on. If we hurt them, same thing. Forgive, and I want to say forget as well. Too often we might say we forgive, but we don't forget. And I'm not saying that in the case of extreme abuse and things like that, that you should just forget it and just keep going as if everything is normal. I'm not talking about abuse, about excessive situations here. We're talking about just regular everyday stuff. Something happens, there's a misunderstanding, there's a disagreement, there's anger sometimes, and some words were said that shared that should not have been. You forgive, talk it out, and you forget it and you move on. I know that that's easier said than done because I believe in reality, the spoken word, you can't take it back. I'm reminded of a sheet of paper. You take a clean sheet of paper, fresh from from the ream of paper, and you crumple it. And then you decide you want to get it all straightened out again. It doesn't matter what you do. You can wet it, you can iron it out. It doesn't matter what you do, really. You'll never get that paper to be back to what it was in the beginning. And I believe that the spoken word is pretty much like that. The damaging spoken word is pretty much like that. Once it's out there, once it hits that person, I don't know that I could ever really get back 100%. But we do the best we can in terms of talking it out, in terms of forgiving, and in terms of accepting forgiveness, and we move on. That is why it's best to try to, and I want to talk about the second one as I come to that, to think first and act accordingly. If we think first before we say things, sometimes we would avoid the situation where we have this sort of thing happening, where we have to say words and then have to be begging forgiveness afterwards, and having a situation where it's difficult for the person hearing the words to accept that we are sorry because the words should not have been spoken in the first place. So if we think first, which is the other one, so forgive and forget, but then think first and act accordingly. You think first, act accordingly, you will avoid the forgive and forget part. Okay? Um, so that's two. Forgive and forget, think first, and act accordingly. I would say to keep your temper. Don't be too quick to anger. Sometimes some of us have buttons that are too easily pushed. Too easily pushed. Sometimes for little or no reason. Sometimes, as I mentioned in a previous video, we look and we process things through our filters, and it might have nothing to do with the current situation, but we remember something that happened in the past that reminded us of this present situation, and so we jump into that and we react, and Keep your temper. And that will help you as well to think and act accordingly. Anger, as somebody once said, is a lamp, is a wind, sorry. Anger is a wind that blows out the lamp of the mind. So when you're angry, your mind is not functioning as it normally would. So try to keep your temper, avoid anger. So that's forgive and forget, think and act accordingly, keep your temper. Another one I would say is apologize. If you accept, you have to accept that you're wrong sometimes, and if you know that you're wrong, and sometimes even if you don't think you're wrong, apologize. An apology goes a long way to soothe things over. And in apologizing, you're doing the other thing, which is to shoulder the blame. Take responsibility. Take responsibility for what you did. Sometimes people refuse to accept responsibility and they try to twist and turn situations to shove it onto the other person. Doesn't matter how the arguments go, they try to just turn and twist and shove it onto the other person. Accept the responsibility when you know that you are the one in the wrong. And just doing these little things can help to make a relationship better. Forgive and forget. Think before you act. Keep your temper. Apologize. Shoulder responsibility. And you know what I think is probably the most important one? Well, maybe not the most important because they're all important. Make the best of your situation. Whatever situation you are in, make the best of it. Sometimes things are not going the way you would like them to go. Rather than being grumpy and complaining, we spoke about complaining in a previous video. I always remember my little niece years ago, we were going on a long trip. And you know, our children can be miserable sometimes on long trips. So before we left, I tried to prepare them for it, let them understand it would be a very long trip. It was a road trip. We were leaving from New Jersey to go to Georgia, driving. And I was pleasantly surprised. They were about about 7 and 8 at that time, my niece and my nephew. And I was pleasantly surprised at how well they behaved. And one of the things that helped to lighten the way as we went on this trip was my niece initiating a singing session, and she was teaching us the words to a song she had learned. It's a long road to Tipperary. She did from England, so and we sang that song. And just as I said, you make the best of it. So you're in a situation, make the best of it because you're in a situation anyway. Make it pleasant. Sing, tell a joke, laugh, lighten the mood rather than be grumpy, complaining, and making it heavy. Especially if it's in a situation that's already unpleasant. You can participate, you can do your part to make it to lighten the mood, make it more pleasant. Don't care what is going on. So these are just some thoughts that came through my mind after the person asked me what they did. And I thought I'd share them with you. Just again, some additional things that we can think about to include in our life as we go through, as we go along, making the best of our lives, the rest of our lives, the best of our lives. Until the next video. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.